Hey guys, it's TheFrXion here, Tiger Tank 12, however you wanna call me, I don't really care, and today we are going to take a look at the M4-A2, also known as the Loza M4. And this is the brand new Tier 6 Russian, very important fact, Russian medium premium tank that has just hit the live server 2 or 3 days ago. And obviously, since I'm a tank collector, I've picked it up and I'm gonna give you guys a rundown what this tank is all about. So, the first thing you'll notice what is special about this tank is that it is a Russian tank or a Soviet tank. And that has to do with the fact that this is a land-leased American M6, and we do not want to take a look at the statistics, we want to take a look at the vehicle details. So as you can see, as the description is showing here, the M4-A2 76W medium tank that in the spring of 1945 was manned by the crew of Dmitry Loza, a future hero of the Soviet Union and commander of the 1st Tank Battalion of the 46th Guard Tank Brigade of the 9th Guards Mechanized Corps. So when you buy this tank, you'll actually get this Soviet hero as well, Dmitry Loza. Sorry about that. He was, as the description said, a Soviet hero eventually, and he was fighting mainly in this tank. And land-leased tanks during World War II were not uncommon. It was not an uncommon sight, and in World of Tanks, it is not uncommon to have some of these in the game as well. If we take a look at the Soviet tech tree, we can actually go over there real fast. We see that they have the Matilda and the Valentine as premium, and the Churchill as premium tanks as well. All these three tanks are land-leased vehicles from the British. Now, if we take a look at history, during 1941, when the Germans started Operation Barbarossa, they obviously overran the Soviets. Although the Soviets had more tanks, they were unable to respond quickly enough to force the Germans back out. Thus, they lost a lot of their equipment early on in the early stages of the war. A lot of their early tanks, I mean the Germans back then did not have the Tiger 1 or the Panther, since they were introduced later in 1942 and 1943. And the Soviets actually had the upper hand with their KV-1s. Now, the KV-1s they actually had previously since 1939, and they even had the T-34s, but unfortunately for them, they were not able to use them efficiently enough to get to fight against the Germans. They did have the KV-1s fight against some German tanks, and they were a lot better armed and a lot better armored for those instances, while the Germans had to use 88 caliber guns, you know, the Flags, the Flag 88 or the Flag 38, however you want to call it, or the Pak 76 to go through the KV-1's frontal armor, since that thing was a pretty damn big tank at the beginning of World War II, at least at the beginning of the war in Soviet Russia. So obviously then with the signed contract of the land lease agreement, the British, the Americans, or pretty much the Commonwealth with the Americans, sent over tanks to the Russians. Incorporated were like the Matilda, as already said, the Churchills, and the Valentines. But the Russians were not very happy with a lot of their land-leased vehicles that they received. They really loved the M-Tracks that they received. They used them for towing for anti-tank weapons, for towing artillery pieces. But in regards of tanks, they were not very keen on the idea of M4 Shermans. They did receive quite a few of the Shermans, but they were not very happy with them. So it is very interesting to see Wargaming adding an M4-A2 Loza, or this Loza tank, into the game, since Shermans, they did not like the Shermans. They thought they were not reliable enough with their diesel engine that caught on fire a lot, and with their very, very bad frontal armor. And This one is actually running with the 76mm gun that was used on the EZ-8, the Firefly. Actually, Firefly had a different gun, since that was the... I have to think real fast. I think it was the 17-pounder gun. A very, very good British gun that they were finally able to take on Tigers with that tank, with the Sherman Firefly. But the Americans, the first few iterations of M4s that they sent over to the Russians, they were some pretty lame short-barreled 76 guns, 76-based Shermans, and they were not happy with them at all. So it's kind of surprising to see that they actually have placed a Sherman here in the game for the Soviets. But now, obviously, moving on from all those kind of historical facts, I think it's very important to know a little bit about the history on certain things, or history in general. Is always good to have some context. So what we're looking at right here is pretty much a standard Sherman EZ-E2, but actually it's not that standard, because we'll see when we're looking at this tank with the armor. But first of all, I think what we can do right now is we can compare this tank with the other Shermans that are in the game. I actually own another one in my garage. One of them, as you can see, is the Thunderbolt, but I think the other ones I don't have in my garage. So we're gonna add 2 more Sherman tanks. Let's go over to tier 6, nation United States of America, and we're gonna add the EZ-8 and the E2, since these are the ones that are most similar to these vehicles that we're going to be comparing right now. So we have to upgrade them to their full capacity, because obviously it would not be fair to have a tank that is not best equipped to a tank that is better equipped. So we have 4 versions of Sherman tanks. Now, these 4 tanks are all based on the American version. We're not putting in the Firefly, because that is a very distinctly different British tank, since they actually turned the turret around 90 degrees, actually, I think. Very interesting on that. I looked at a documentary about that vehicle, but yeah. So, firepower, the first thing we'll notice is we're all comparing the long 76mm gun, and you can see all of these guns have the same characteristics, at least in, okay, we have to configure the E2 over to the 76mm gun, excuse me. And all of the guns have the same alpha damage, all of the guns have the same penetration with their standard rounds, 128mm of pen. Talking about 128mm of penetration at tier 6, I think it's enough at tier 6 and tier 7, but going up against some heavily armored tier 7s, tier 8 vehicles, 128mm will not be enough and will not suffice. So pen, we can already say it's mediocre on the Loza, on the Thunderbolt, and the E8 and the E2 if we're using the 76mm gun. The rate of fire on the Loza is better than on the other vehicles, since I do have a good crew on this tank, and I do have some equipment that I don't have on the Thunderbolt, and I don't own the E8 and the E2 currently in my garage, so these tanks will not be as fully upgraded as the Loza M4 is. So pretty much what you can see though is that the reload time is a bit better than on the Thunderbolt, and the turret traverse speed is on par with the E2 and the E8. It's not better, it's a little bit worse, but still it's on par. Gun depression wise, it does not have the same gun depression as the EZ-8 with 12 degrees of gun depression, which is very, very astounding, because 12 degrees it's a perfect perfect hill or ridge warrior. The Loza does get away with 10 degrees of gun depression, which is very decent still in comparison to other tier 6 vehicles, and 25 degrees of gun elevation is the same on every other tank. Aiming time, it's not the worst, it's not the best. The Thunderbolt takes a cake there, and dispersion also is better on the Thunderbolt than on the Loza M4-A2. But it does have a better DPM than the other vehicles, since it does have It shoots more rounds per minute. I do have a better crew on that, and I mean it will leave you with a DPM of 2,230. So it is an increase of 231 damage in regards with the in direct comparison to the Thunderbolt, but I don't think it's that much of a deal. Survivability. This is where it gets really interesting because when I first started playing the Loza, I expected a mixture of the E2 and the Easy 8 because the armor on the front looked like it was on par with the E2, the Jumbo. But when I looked into the statistics, I noticed that this tank has only 63 millimeters of frontal armor, thus it's the same as the Easy 8. It's a very badly armored Sherman tank. Other than that, the statistics are the same on the turret and on the hull, you know, the side. It's very, very badly armored. It doesn't have this crazy turret that the Jumbo has, like the stock Jumbo, I think. And it doesn't have the 123 millimeter frontal armor that the Thunderbolt has. So this is something you have to keep in mind. I thought this tank had like crazy good armor, but when I took a look into the statistics, it's not very well armored. So keep that in mind. Easily able to penetrate the tank from the front, the side, the rear, wherever you want to shoot it. It will probably not bounce a lot of stuff, at least at tier 7 or higher tier 8. So the engine power, now this is where it gets really interesting because this tank, if we take a look at its weight, it's 34.35 tons heavy currently. It has a horsepower or engine with 410 horsepower, but at the same time, like it is faster than the Easy 8, which is lighter, has better horsepower, better specific like horsepower to ton ratio, but is slower than the Loza M4, which is kind of weird. And also the traverse speed is a hell of a lot better than any of the other vehicles with 49.64 degrees turning your tracks, which is better than the other 3 competing vehicles. It's faster, it's more flexible, and I think that is the crown jewel of this tank. It does have a little bit of an edge in firepower, at least with DPM, and it's better in mobility, so you'll be able to run around with this tank faster. Now concealment obviously is something we should not compare because I have some equipment on that and spotting as well. I have binos on that vehicle as well. So what does this leave us with? It leaves us with an M4 that is worse armored than the Thunderbolt, has the same armament but has better DPM, and is faster than the Thunderbolt, and can get around the map quicker and move better. So I'd say we will take a look at 2 gameplays that I've prepared for you guys, and we can make a final verdict after those 2 games. I'm taking a look at is one where we are not top tier. We are tier 7, and this is a position you'll be finding yourself in this tank in quite often. You will not be top tier since it's the crucial tier. Tier 6 is like the crucial tier where you mostly are there to fill the ranks of the tier 7, tier 8 battles, you know, to just fill that out. I hope they will address this issue and make it like disappear in the patch in March. They said they wanted to fix matchmaker, and that's exactly an issue that should be fixed and attended, because this is just kind of annoying for all the people who are playing tier 6. So moving that out of the way, what are we looking at here? We're looking at the Loza playing on the map Airfield. And we're going up against some tier 7 vehicles and quite a few tier 6 tanks, so we'll be having our work cut out for us. And as already mentioned, this tank does shine with its very, very nice horsepower, or lack of horsepower, but still very competitive speed. 51 kilometers going forwards. I think this is the fastest Sherman tank in the game. I'm not sure, maybe the Fury is a little bit faster, but still I think it is just as fast as that vehicle. So we spot the ARL-44, and you can see 128 millimeters of penetration is not going to suffice against a tier 6 heavy tank. Now just imagine we would be facing an Oni up front. That is not something you would want to have in this tank, and that is definitely not the role of this tank. It's not the role of, forcing medium or other heavy tanks to be collected in front of you and maybe create a choke point for your team to push and flank them. The job of your vehicle is actually to flank them and be the flexible warrior. Your gun is not one of the guns that does massive amounts of damage, but it's like even the smallest strikes can hurt in a summary against a big opponent, and that's exactly what you can do with this tank. 128 millimeters of pen is enough to go through some tier 7s and tier 6 vehicles though, and what you can see right here is that the accuracy and the reload time is not too bad. It has the best DPM. I think accuracy wise it's not the most accurate tier 6 tank, but it doesn't seem to be that bad. I think the Thunderbolt is a bit more accurate, has more frontal armor, but still this tank is still fairly competitive. What you can see is I'm using this spot right here, E5. It's a common medium tank spot where you can use these bushes to your advantage and shoot some of those tanks that are coming in from the J line or the G line. And this is where I decided to actually help my heavy tanks out and the other medium tanks to push these tanks and maybe open up one of those front lines. And you can see if you have the side of the KV2, things do look a little bit differently from this kind of view. With the rate of fire, you'll be able to, just shoot all those rounds at them without an issue. And what do we have here? It's a Leo. And this Leo is actually using, I think, the 105 millimeter gun. We get really lucky and we bounce that shot, or our tracks absorb that shot, but we're not as lucky with the second blow. He does deal a massive amount of damage to us. It's just a tier 7 vehicle, keep that in mind. It's a tier 7 vehicle that just did 358 damage to us, and we are now left only with 392 HP with one hit received. So our tank, 750 HP, is definitely not a lot. It's not a lot that you can bargain with. And this is the moment where I was using APCR and where I was using the gold shells, which have, if I'm taking a look, 177 millimeters of penetration, which is not that crazy much, but it's enough to at least go through some tier 7 tanks. It's not going to be as reliable against tier 8s, but still at least tier 7s, and tier 6 tanks will be able to be penned with this gun and with this ammunition type. That's exactly what I tried to do with the E2. I immediately loaded APCR rounds because you're not going to go through the Easy 8. No, not the Easy 8, the Jumbo with non-premium ammunition, because that tank has just too much armor for you at that angle. So that's exactly what I did right here, because I want to win this match. It's getting very close. We have already dealt 1,835 HP worth of damage, 335 damage spotted for our tanks. And what you can see right here is that with these premium rounds, actually it was not really necessary for me to load premium rounds right here, but I wanted to be on the safe side to win this match. So where does this leave us? You don't have the armor. We were lucky there that the E2 had the... Actually, we were unlucky there that he had the 105mm derp gun, because he still did 100 damage. If he had like a 76mm gun, we probably wouldn't have been able to penetrate us, because we had like our hull completely covered. And shooting a Sherman turret is kind of tricky from time to time. It's very annoying because the gun mantle is actually not too bad. But what you can see right here is just going up against these Japanese super heavy tanks. I mean, it was very, very badly shot. All of these rounds were really, really bad. But still, you can see with premium ammunition, you're going to have a hard time going through some tanks. Just imagine this tank playing against your tier 8 vehicles. It's not going to be as nice as you would imagine. And right here, this is the first time in a long time that I completely forgot about the minimap and I got outflanked by a T-34-85M. He takes us out. We were just one shot shy of taking him out. 4 kills, 2,231 damage, and some assistance damage there. All in all, not a bad result. We'll take a look at the results separately at the end of the video, where we'll also have like a final verdict about this tank. And actually, we still managed to win this match because these two guys actually managed to cap the enemy base. I did not expect them to be able to cap the base, since I thought like the T-34-85 or the Jackson would come back in time and reset cap. But luckily for me, they had some other ideas about that. So that was our first game, first victory in that kind of sense. Now let's move on and see how this tank fares against tier 8 tanks. The game I've prepared for you guys is on the map Winterberg. It's not Ruinberg if there's snow on the map. You can see we are very much outplaced. Last game we only had tier 7s as top tiers. This game around we are facing some tier 8s as well. And how do you think this tank will fare against tier 8s? It is the crux of every tier 6 tank, the battle where you have to face some tier 8 vehicles out on some kind of map where you have no chance. Now, does this tank do well against these vehicles? Well, let's put it frankly, it's very difficult at tier 6 to fight tier 8s with any vehicle. This tank is no different from all the other vehicles. It's 128 millimeters of pen is just not good enough. 177 is not even good enough at tier 8, and you'll be facing or you'll be finding yourself in some very unfortunate locations. But still, if you try really hard, you actually can do some damage against some tier 8s like that Panther 88. But then again, if something like artillery hits you, you're gonna have a really bad day, because arty does 279 damage to your tank, since you only have 63 millimeters of frontal armor. And if they hit your top part of your tank, well, good night to you. It's gonna be really disgusting. Unfortunately, in this match, this Hummel had something for me. He was really adamant about taking me out of the game somehow, since I was the biggest threat out here in the open. And you can see, yeah, mobility wise, this tank is fast once it reaches its 51 kilometer top mark, but on the other hand, it takes some time. So the acceleration is not the thing that will leave you in awe. It's like the acceleration could be better, but I think that's just the thing. It takes a while, but once you get up to this speed, you'll be able to be quite maneuverable. But yeah, as already mentioned, its mobility is like the only real selling point to this vehicle. And like the Fury, the Thunderbolt, they're all, I mean, the Fury I think is just as fast as this tank, maybe faster because of the acceleration, but the Thunderbolt on the other hand is just not that fast. But at least the Thunderbolt sports 123 millimeters of frontal armor, which is really, really nice against tier 6 and tier 7 tanks. Even against some tier 8s, it does suffice. This tank, on the other hand, is kind of in bad luck or bad shape. If you're going up against these tier 7 or super heavy tanks like the OI, for example, you will have to load APCR to go through the front or the side. Okay, against you can go through the side with standard AP rounds, but you can almost forget it with you know, the front with standard AP rounds. So that leaves you with kind of the opposite of flexibility, and that is very strict kind of a gameplay. If you're going up against these tier 8 tanks, it's not going to be nice. You'll not be enjoying it as much as you would enjoy tier 6 battles. I think that is given. But we didn't really have any real contact in this game with tier 8s. But you can just see how badly you're like positioned in this game when you're in a tier 6 vehicle against tier 8 tanks. Oh, excuse me, I'm a little bit tired. Had quite a long night yesterday. And what you can see right here is I'm trying to snipe, and it is pretty damn hard to be accurate with this gun right here. Last game actually was not too bad. I have to check back how good the accuracy on this tank is, but it's actually not too bad. It could be worse. It's, I think, the same as the other German Sherman tanks. But what you can see here is if you're going up against tier 6 tanks like the M6, you'll be able to penetrate those tanks without a problem most of the time. But those tier 7s, they already are not as nice to you as the other tier 6 vehicles. And we get taken out by a tank destroyer at tier 7, the AMX AC-46. So what does that leave us with? It leaves us with a Sherman tank that you can play on the Soviet tech tree, which is a good crew trainer, but like a standard Sherman or mediocre Sherman at best. And if that is enough for you, I think you can pick this one up. There are like three different bundles right now. You can just get the tank for $19. You can get like a bundle with, I don't know, equipment and stuff for $29, and then you can get like the full package with gold and stuff for I think about $60. Now, talking about its value or worth, I think let's jump over to the conclusion, and we'll take a look at the results of these two games, and we'll see how well actually this tank does make credits and train the crew skill. So taking a look at the statistics of the first game that we played, it was a tier 7 only match with the tier 6 vehicles strewn in between. You can see it's a quite nice result. We did fire quite a lot of premium rounds, although I have to be honest, because I really wanted to win that match. We did win it in the end by some kind of... I'm not even sure how we won that match. We shouldn't have won it, but still, my team managed to turn it around and cap the base, which I'm thankful for. I got the mastery badge right there, some other stuff that I don't really care about. All I care about right now is my damage output, the experience that I earned, and how many credits we received through that. So you can see I shot quite a lot of premium ammunition around. We did receive incomplete like 87,000 credits. This is very important, and the experience is very important to note right now. There's an event going on. You'll get like a 48% experience and credit bonus and crew experience bonus because I'm currently at level 10 festive atmosphere for every nation. Yeah, I've been pretty busy. So how much credits does that leave us with? So 87,000 minus 33,000, almost 34,000 credits. That leaves us with 53,670. And the 28,000 is a bonus also from this level 10 festive atmosphere. So that is very important to note that you keep that in mind. 28,419. That is the bonus that we're receiving. So we would probably just have been left with around something of 25,000 credits that we would have received. And also, since we were playing with premium, we were able to get that credit out of the match. Without premium, it would have been very different. We would have only received 24,461 with the 48% bonus, and without the 48% bonus, well, it would have been just about 6,000-7,000 credits. So is this tank a credit machine? Like, if you're shooting so much premium as I am, or as I have been in this match, I'm not thinking that this tank will be a credit shooting machine or a credit making machine. But still, I mean, it is a premium tank. You should not make any loss. That is, your main concern is to make credits or train your crew. But with this tank, I think it's a bit difficult to say. This is just the first game that we have taken a look at. The second game we will take a look at right now as well. That was a little bit of a shorter match, and you can see right here we still made about 47,000 credits, obviously with premium and the additional bonus. We did not spend as much on ammunition this time around, since I was not firing any premium rounds. And you can see at tier 8, well, you're pretty much lost in the battlefield. That just happens. This is not a tank that should go up against tier 8 vehicles. No tier 6 tank should go up against tier 8 vehicles, to be honest. And you can see just how badly that can turn out, especially if you have artillery fixed on you, just as I had in that match. But we still managed to do 900 damage and 800 spotting damage. Thus, it was not too bad of a result at tier 8. But this tank definitely does not fare as well at tier 8 as it would fare as in tier 7 and tier 6. Doesn't mean it's completely useless, since you could see we were still able to do like a bit of damage on the Panther 3. Against those tier 6 tanks, we were able to do the damage. It's same tier, shouldn't be too hard. But everything over tier 7 is going to be very difficult to penetrate with standard AP rounds. So where does this leave us? Is this a tank that you need to pick up if you are like, let's say, a M4 fan? Well, it's very difficult to say. For me, I'm a tank collector. I picked it up immediately. I knew I was going to make a review or a best premium tank review on this vehicle, because I think it's important for you guys to know what this vehicle is all about. It is a new premium tank. It's a tier 6. It's nothing shockingly new, since it's just another Sherman tank, and we had a few Sherman premium tanks now with the Fury, with the Thunderbolt. But if you really want a Sherman tank for the Soviets, and you want to have a tank that trains your crew, on Soviet medium tanks, this might be an alternative. I mean, the other medium tanks, the premium medium tanks that you can get on the Soviet branch, are very different. There are not many land-leased tier 8 or tier 6 vehicles. At least, I think this is the first tier 6 land-leased tank, if I'm not mistaken. And it does just do what a medium or a Sherman does very well. I think it is a perfect representation of a Sherman, just on a different tree, which will give you like the ability to grind credits and crew experience on your Soviet tanks. Is it a must buy? Definitely not. It's not a must buy if you already have like a Sherman. Let's say you even have the Easy 8, you're not going to miss out if you don't have this tank. But if you're looking for a Sherman and you're like, you want to get it on the Russian tech tree, I think this is the opportunity to get one. It's $19. I know it's not the priciest premium tank, but when has World of Tanks ever been like pricey or fair in that kind of sense? But yeah, definitely. I think for those hardcore Sherman fans, it's worth a shot. For those people who like land-leased tanks on the Soviet tech tree, it's worth a shot. But all the other players, I think it's not really worth it. I mean, it's nice to get like the M4 Loza as your commander. You get a Easy 8 that is faster and is more mobile, more flexible at tier 6 in the Russian branch. But other than that, it's nothing special. So yeah, that's my final verdict. I would say it's nothing special, and it's not an really necessary pickup like, let's say, the Scorpion was back in the days. So I hope you guys did enjoy this review, and if you did, comment down below, like and subscribe. Did you enjoy this tank? Would you pick it up? Have you already picked it up? And what do you think of Wargaming adding another Sherman tank to the game? And I'll see you guys in the next one.